not necessarily important. They are. But it will not be good and cost-effective use of Kenyan money to actually develop all those roads in the north where we have half the population of the whole of Nairobi, for instance.
Yes, ma'am.
No, I think...
No, we can talk now. You want to take a walk there?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. Now, if we go to the railway, okay, you said something very fundamental before the show, which is that about 80% of the country's population is spread along here and 100 kilometers up and down. So if we use your argument, which is to develop people as opposed to develop places, we're saying this thing of just and equitable redistribution of resources is only going to be centered along here. What this does is it forces people and it forces the counties to reallocate its resources across the entire country. So we're saying that the people here in your northeastern region, they probably have nothing but air. They don't have oil, they have nothing else, but they have wind. So they can generate power using wind farms. They can, you know, it could be the wind farms, it could be anything, and connect to the national grid and find a way to participate in the economy of the country. But you cannot just say that we need to invest in people. Now, if we come here, we know that, let's say, we need to build a power station down here in Hola, and there is coal that is now being, you know, hopefully will be mined around the Mui, is it Mui Basin? Mui Basin. There's nothing along there. We now have a railway line that only passes across here, but we need to get it towards Mui. Why? Because you can't move coal by road. You need to use the railway. So you need to be able to figure out how to redistribute all these resources and how to redistribute the money and how everybody can be involved wherever you are, whether it's oil or you've just got air or you've got whatever, how you can be involved in rebuilding the nation. I think that makes more sense as opposed to investing in people. You invest in the places. I think that was the whole point of devolved government.
Do you want to step back there?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Yeah, you can stay up or sit down, maybe, whichever way.
Well, actually, the 80% of Kenyans who actually live 100 kilometers both sides of the railway line is because the railway line was developed. It's not because people were there before. And those are historical facts. And this railway line was actually built to go and get all the gold and diamonds around Lake Victoria. It was not necessarily developed you know, to bring milk or anything else, you know. And the gold was to be transported by the railway line into Mombasa to be processed in southern Africa. Now, the development, what normally happens in development, if you do infrastructural development, people will tend to follow, you know, where there is infrastructure. Okay, I understand that if you have limited resources, then it's easier for you to look at, you know, taking the development to where people are already. But ask yourself, why did these people concentrate around the railway line? So we must also be thinking 50 years later, the way these guys had actually thought about 100 years ago to build the railway line so that our people could concentrate around that railway line. We can be building our infrastructure in such a way that people would therefore have no problem of they'll actually be moving in to the places where infrastructure actually exists. So the thinking is about looking at the future, and some of us actually think about if I can you know, plan properly, I should actually plan for my great-great-grandchildren. You know, I should not be the one to really benefit from this planning. It's my great-grandchildren who should actually be benefiting from this.
Come,
I think
let's talk about that question of people versus places.
Yes.
That has immediately come up in this discussion.
The key thing,
yes.
The key thing, and this is important and very fundamental. The Constitution and the people of Kenya brought a concept of equalization. So the philosophy is not that you are not going to develop those areas, but you're going to develop them in tandem with also optimizing the others. So it's not like you throw one to finish one. It's that you have a philosophy where you are equalizing because you agree with what you have just said, that there are areas which went earlier and faster because of certain fundamentals. So that's the equalization fund philosophy that we have all accepted. The other bigger thing which we need to be clear is that when you look at the Article 203, which is like the anchoring article for funding counties, is the one which has this philosophy. It's the one which says when you are thinking how to give money, you do the following. You identify national interest. So if one of our national interests is to decongest cities, assuming that's a national interest,
I should hope it would be fundamental.
Then this becomes a concept that one would then implement. You'll be like asking yourself, for people to move industries out of Nairobi, let me develop other places. Now that philosophy is already part of our Vision 2030. So by saying we want Isiolo to be a city, we want Diani in Mombasa South Coast to be a city, you're already borrowing those type of philosophies in the thinking of the national interest.
Hold on, Kariri.
Yes.
Tell me, Kwame, because for you, how does the people versus place argument sit?
Let's look at it, and as Kenyans, as we talk about history, let's not debate with history. The railway line was developed for specific purposes, and it has determined our development for the while. It's not, so we have to work with the fact that we have the reality of, in my reckoning actually, in my calculation, 65%, 70% of the population on either side of 100 kilometers of either side of the railway. Now that's already here with us. If you look historically, whether in the US, everywhere else, people tend to settle in certain places. They are never settled in the same proportionate ways. And it has not stopped these countries. Australia, most people are on whatever coasts and certain places. Certain places because they are desert, the roads are there, but it is not as dense as other places because otherwise you are actually not using resources well. And so the way to think about it is the philosophy is urban areas are also very efficient ways for actually providing people with services. Part of the reason we can't wire electricity to every person's village in this country is because if you generate electricity from, say, a certain dam, pushing it 700 kilometers loses you so much that it's not efficient in the end. Now, that's not to mean it shouldn't be done. I'm just saying that when we have tightness of resources, it helps to actually develop people and not places. That has happened in many other places. In fact, the country that we say we're looking at, China, has very many ghost cities based on the same logic that you need to distribute development
Mary,
across.
you're shaking your head.
I'm sorry, I'm shaking my head because based on this proposal, we're saying that people will follow the development. So if, say, you take Mui, the Mui Basin, we found coal. We're now trying to figure out whether it's commercially viable coal and whether it can be used for generation of electricity. If now you build a 600 megawatt power plant there, what happens? You have people living around there, you have industries developing around there, you then develop a little city, maybe Mui City. So it makes sense to invest in places and figure out what can be done in the different regions that will then decentralize and decongest the cities and move people to those places because people will follow. If you think about Turkana, and we've now found oil, very soon people will be moving there. That the concept has to be distributing people across here. Just because it is dry in Mandera doesn't mean that we can not have a vibrant and boisterous agricultural city there. Why? Because it's been done in Israel. They're in the middle of the desert and they are growing big fat strawberries, cabbages, tomatoes and all of those things. It can be done. So if the people in Mandera decide we are dry but we want to invest in greenhouses and new technology and this is how we're going to develop our places, we've got that national trunk road that, you know, your red lines, and then based on that we as a county then figure out how to align and harmonize our plan based on the national, national resources. And that way you move people from this congested 80-100 kilometer stretch to the rest of the country. It then makes sense for you to move your transmission lines and build them to Mandera because there are people there. It's economically viable to do that. Now it's not because there are not enough people. Who are you going to build in Mandera? But if you've got hundreds and thousands of people there growing strawberries in the desert, it will work.
Unless we are trying to develop something that has not happened in the history of economics and geography and political development.
In
Look
Kenya,
at it,
yes,
wherever.
it's happened other places.
Europe, wherever. The first places that had urbanization, Europe, Latin America, Asia is following up, and all those places that are growing wealthier. 40% of the population are in the top 10 cities.
Nobody's disputing that.
Okay? 40% of the population are in the top 10. If you look at Eldoret, Nakuru, Kisumu, Nairobi, and Mombasa, they hold almost 30% of Kenya's population today. Sorry, almost 23% of Kenya's population today. I mean, if you put it all together, between 18 and 21% of Kenya's population, for a purpose. Cities are very efficient economic mechanisms. So if we are going to bring economics into this argument, let's not throw history because it's not politically convenient to discuss. It is very highly unlikely that a country whose citizens earn $1,200, okay, over a whole year, can actually go into that mega planning and distribute cities and roads. Look at one other thing, taking you back to geography. Because of the sheer size of the northern part of this country, and I say this advisedly and with respect, the amount of roads you'll be doing in that concentric lines will be much, much more than the roads you'll have around Nairobi. Why? And yet Nairobi has almost 30% of Kenya's vehicles. Some of these things are just a bit busy. We may say it was a wrong decision to have Nairobi where it is, but the fact is that's the reality, and it's almost path dependent. We have to develop from what exists towards something that's better.
Osano, how does this sit with your map? Because my situation is, this is the moment for the new constitution. This is the rollout moment. I want to be careful that I am telling Kenyans what to look out for, what to expect, what to demand, and how to participate. How does it sit with...
I think before he answers,
yes,
let's bring in a very major issue. Within the thinking of the Constitution, Article 184 to be specific, the thinking of urban and cities is already inside the Constitution. We actually have an Urban and Cities Act already. In that act, we created a structure where somebody can apply to become a city. So what I like about the drawing is not too much on the road network. I think it's the philosophy that these are potential city points. Now that potentiality of that area is what we should be encouraging the Kenyan population in those places to start asking what advantages can we really behind our area for our area to grow to be a city. So let's be very personal. It's not that your county cannot grow a city like Nairobi. It can. But that deliberate passion of making your area a city does not necessarily mean you want a population to be coming. It means whatever interest you create in your area, people will come and do that. For example, we have suggested the whole of northern Kenya is a potential Disney World. It's a potential kind of a film area. It's an area that can naturally grow movie industry to a very high level in this country. So what do you want? You want the governor of that area to start asking what attractive incentives do filmmakers require for them to use an area like our northeastern, for example. Once you agree the benefits, the rest of the detail of economic meaning in terms of road, how to take the crew, where to sleep in a hotel, which hospitals should be where, those natural items will follow.
Bring us back.
Yes.
I don't want us to go too far.
Yeah.
Osano, bring me back to the place where I'm going to be an accountant tomorrow. Now, as we already are debating, is it the resource or the person that comes first? For you in one line, what comes first, the person or the resource?
Well, actually, a resource, I won't move to a place if, I can't find a place to stay or a reason for me, an economically viable reason for me to go to that place.
So how ready are we for an equitable rollout? From what we now see, we have arguments on Vision 2030. We know what is in the Constitution, but we know what Kenyans have to deal with tomorrow morning.
The truth is, whoever came up with the Constitution and the rollout of this thing is still thinking in 1963. Because Kisumu will still remain Kisumu. And we are thinking of Kiambu remaining Kiambu. The thinking about this structure was proper, equitable development of the country. And I don't think we don't have money. I think this country is one of the richest countries in the world. We just discovered water that we can, other than oil that
so we can fund it.
We can fund it. We have the money. The only problem is who should own the oil fields. Is where the problem is. Otherwise, we actually have a lot of gold, we have a lot of oil, we have a lot of water. We can actually, pump water and feed the whole of Africa with clean water from northeastern province.
So if you sat with the governors who are going to be sworn in and senators tomorrow, what would be your entry discussion for them? What would be your pointed instruction for them?
Well, that now moves away slightly from from this structure. Because you see, now we would have to go back to what has been created as the counties. And therefore, we'll tell them, listen, go back to the constitution and look at what exists for you in terms of the budget that will be given to you, so that you start utilizing those budgets according to what you actually put in place as what you want to really implement in the county.
You see, what we need our viewers to have at the back of their mind is the fact of being equitably developed is not a negotiation item. It's an Article 43 item. It's a right in Article 43. So the country will be using what we call a human development type of budgeting
How do
system.
I move it from
So
just
that
saying
now
right
means,
on paper?
no, that now means
Yes.
if you don't have a road, the constitution is saying you should be given a road. You together? So your governor now has to sit and agree with you at the people participation process that the money for doing a road, from what we have been allocated, we don't seem to have. So can we borrow? The same constitution says yes, you can borrow as a county. How much can you borrow? The national structure says if parliament is to guarantee, you apply for the guarantee. So at the back of my mind, what we need each governor to start building is what is the gap between my people and what I need to give them.
That
in
would be
terms
your
of
first
water,
point.
in terms of road, in terms of health. That stock of what I don't have for my people should be a day one item for every government.
So in the first inclusive meeting,
They should not be discussing their houses. That's what I'm trying to say. They should be discussing what don't we have that we must have for my people to feel equal.
Mary?
I agree with him, but I would also, I think we need to also know that the governors are not working in a vacuum. So you've got the national level, which is the national government, and then it's got its mandate. So like when we talk about roads and equitable distribution, you've got in that structure, you've got the national roads, and we know that the national roads are part of the mandate of the national government under Schedule 4. The national government is also the one to determine what the standards of construction and maintenance of the roads is. Now me as a governor, I will then determine I need to be able to access, to link all these different roads. You've got like 3 levels there, and I need to access, I need the access, but I also need people to be able to move up and down, and I need to link myself, my county, with the next county. So
Is that your agenda number 2?
Agenda number 2. I need
Identify the gaps.
Identify the gap.
And then start identifying the linkages.
Identify the linkages.
Cross-county.
Cross-county, bearing in mind that I need to figure, I need to also bear in mind what the national government has in plan for the country. And now I need to tap into that. So I'm not working in a vacuum. I can't say that the national government wants to build those roads. I actually don't care how my people will link with those roads. I have to be able to link to my neighbor.
I want to go back there, even as you explained that. Osana, you had said something also in terms of the governments and how they'll work. This is the first, this is a map, this is an outline. But there's also the argument, as you've been saying, about proximity to power. Will this change? When we're talking about people changing, if I can just narrow this down. Osano, come up here for a minute.
Oh.
Thank you. And if I can just have the camera just look at this. I have a big challenge with this. We're rolling out the counties. We're rolling out empowered governors, empowered senators. But how will you remove the age-old tradition, habits, and belief of Kenyans? It can only work with proximity to the king, proximity to the presidency.
We've actually created 47 kings who are the governors.
Is that a good or bad thing?
Well, it's good. I think that's what we asked for.
Right.
We actually wanted a devolved government.
So are we
at the end of the
transferring to
day,
them the same thing, proximity to them?
Of course, proximity to the governor will not necessarily be equal to proximity to the presidency, but everybody else will scramble around the governor within the counties.
So what motivated you to knock it down
Now,
like this?
This is actually governance. We're thinking about governance, and we say that, you see, for a county to work, you need structures. You need, at the national level, we're talking about, the cabinet secretaries.
Yes.
being policy, they develop policies. For example, if we were to take something like health and social services.
Okay, let's sit here for a while. Let's sit here for a while. It says here, ministries in charge of social service provision.
Yeah.
Okay, let's sit here for a while. You've got education, human resource development and research in one box.
Yes.
You've got health and social services in one box.
Land utilization, management and housing development, and then culture, youth, sports and tourism, infrastructure, maintenance and management.
You're putting this on this plate.
Yeah. They're all under this
Right.
social service provision. Now, if say we were to look at the health and social services, the cabinet secretary in charge of health and social services at the national level will be setting a national policy. In fact, let me use actually a better example, this one of land utilization, management and housing development.
Okay, who's here?
No, this is just a box.
No, who's at the top of it?
No, these are ministers now. There are 16 ministries.
But there's a blue line here.
No, that's just...
so this is not a position?
It's not a position.
All right.
That's not a position.
So these are positions?
Yeah, those are positions.
These are cabinet secretaries?
Yes.
Right.
And there's 16 in number. You know. So the blue box is simply to group them together because they are related ministries. These are social service provision ministries. So we have 5 of them in that particular box.
So if you were to talk to governors,
yes,
how would you want them to relate to these boxes? Now that we've said find out the gaps, we've agreed look out for the linkages, how does this instruct the next step?
Well, at the end of the day, now what we're going to be looking at first of all is for them to find out the gaps in terms of housing, gaps in terms of health situation, gaps in terms of schools, gaps in terms of agriculture, livestock and everything else. But what we need to do is to have a structure, national structure, where all these gaps would actually be fitting into. I wanted to give an example of, say, housing. If the national government says that we need to build 150,000 houses, then, as we said earlier on, there are certain cities that already will be having their share of the number of houses they're supposed to be building. Kisumu, Eldoret, Mombasa, Nairobi, Nakuru and all that, agreed upon. So that out of the 150,000 houses, say Kisumu would be having 10,000 houses that they should be building. Now that will be the role of the governor to find out how they can actually build those 10,000 houses, to fit into the national, development plan of providing housing for the country.
I know the next argument that will start there. You should Mary, come up here and tell me a bit about cascading of structure, cascading of power. We've started at the top, we're coming down, and I know the question now will deal with this: replication, copying, or duplication, or transferring. What wording would you use?
Okay, I think
pick any box.
Okay. Let's take what? Commerce and trade, energy. Okay, let's take this box.
You want us here?
Yeah.
Let's be
so
here.
This is at national government level, all right? So we've got commerce, trade and industrialization, energy, environment, water and natural resource management, agriculture, livestock, fisheries and cooperative development. Now, in my view, the governor, say, of Nairobi needs to, he does not like the word replicate, but
we'll deal with that when we sit down. So you choose your word.
Okay. My word is replicate. And replicate does not necessarily mean copy. It means in my government, my county government, I need to have a Department of Commerce and Trade, Agriculture, Fisheries, Energy Management, Water Management, all of those things. Now, if I am in Mandera, fisheries is unlikely to be a priority. So I will have that. I'll have these, but then I will prioritize maybe cooperative development and agriculture within that box. Commerce, trade and industrialization, perhaps I am in Nairobi, so we're not planting any coffee or strawberries or cabbages, but we're commercial, we're a commercial hub. So this is something that I would focus on. So the government, the county governments are obliged to develop their own IDP, IDP, which is not the internally displaced person.
Yes,
that is
good to know.
That is your industrial development. Independent development plan.
Independent, yes, for each county.
Yeah, so you've got your plan, and that plan has got to do several things. One, it needs to harmonize its plans with what is happening at the national level. It needs to bear in mind what the national government has in plan. So the national government is saying, these are our MDGs, so we're going to meet this. This is Vision 2030, we're going to do it at national level. So me at county level, I need to identify my gaps, identify my links, which means let's figure out what we are going to invest in, what we are, and then figure out what, and this is in the County Government Act, what are the other projects or programs or other development programs that the other counties and the other arms of state or state organs are doing within my environment.
So you're saying you're protecting against a runaway autonomy.
You just can't do your own thing. You need to be part of the bigger thing. And remember, we have, the county governments are going to have to form their county, they're going to have county agreements, national government to county, whatever. So there has to be a coordination.
So there's a blank piece of paper, but there are parameters around it,
yes,
and you fill in the boxes.
You're not just coming to do your own thing.
Well, we're going to come back after a break and just discuss how we'll fit in so that we don't have a situation where there's a runaway county, there's a runaway situation where, as Osan was saying, you don't want to have 47 countries. You want to have 47 counties, but certain words have come up: replicate, duplicate, copy even, and they're going to be words that are going to spring a discussion. This is for the intent or purpose of enabling you engage with your county rep, with your senator, with your governor as a responsible, enlightened citizen. More of this after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Newsline. We are saying this is the moment. This is the time the new constitution comes into full effect. But if it does, are we also saying full fruition? Are we also saying this is the time we shall be able to reap that which we have yearned and really been eager to achieve as Kenyans? I want to put this up at this point and see how it resonates with you as a citizen in terms of your expectations before, your expectations after. I've just put that up, you can just have a look at it. Just to ask the question, how does this new dispensation capture your ideals, capture your dreams as a Kenyan? Are you more hopeful now? Are you more enthused now with the opportunities that have availed themselves? Do you feel now it will become a better place for you as a citizen? It will become a better situation for you as a Kenyan? So let's just come back and even as we talk about this, let me just get a quick sense of, are you seeing a lot more hope in this place we're in now? Are you more enthused as a Kenyan? Can we say we're arguing because we know it's going to get better?
Yes, I think it's going to get better. There's more hope, but only with the proper thinking and implementation of what needs to be done by the governors who are going to be in place.
Mary?
I think there's going to be a lot of work to be done over the next 3 years, because rolling out the actual devolved government means that each county has got to have its specific departments of trade, of industry, of water, fisheries, and all of those. And each of those have got to have budgets allocated to them. They're going to have projects that they're going to have to implement, and all that has to still be streamlined to a national plan. So there's a lot of work, a lot of professionals will need to be involved, and I think it's actually a great opportunity for Kenya.
Are you hopeful, Kwame? Are we looking up?
Yes, I think we have to for two reasons. One of them is that everywhere where decentralization and devolution of whatever magnitude has been tried, it's usually a process that helps you to, it's usually a process that assures you that you'll go through a lot of bumps. If you mix it with our competitive politics in Kenya, in my view, that's what gives us the hope that yes, the noises will be made, but among those noises we'll have golden threads coming out with very good ideas about how to take it forward. At the same time, we have 47 governors. In my view, I am thankful to God that they're very independent. Each of them will try certain things. Over time, we'll see which ones are successful. And then that will lead in terms of telling people, hey, if they can succeed in county X, why can't these other counties? So there'll be a lot of learning, which is what devolution is useful about.
Okay. Even as you respond, Kawit, you can now actually take us into the second part now, where we were debating. There's central government, there is devolution. Words like replicate, duplicate, copy, transfer, what do these words mean to you? Do they scare you? Are they part of the rollout plan? Are you comfortable with? Are there words you don't want to hear? Some of them the words which work for you? Karidi, tell me.
I think the key thing is, I think the Kenyan people, and basically what we call the ordinary person. I like that guy who is, he's carrying this fellow and high wages, and then you have this other fellow with low wages, waving and all that. I think that the inside of all these languages we are using is we did a very good constitution as a people of Kenya. The politics were involved heavily in that constitution, what you call the Naivasha agreements. But inside the whole constitutional processes, the bureaucracy kept quiet throughout. Now bureaucracy is talking. And the way bureaucracy is talking, there are ways they have always done things. And unfortunately, they are structuring to retain, especially procurement power. So from where I'm sitting, the bigger challenge that we have in moving to the new dispensation, which promises Kenyans a lot of good things, is assisting the bureaucracy not to have so much of what my brother is calling the 1963 and before, to a point of never wanting it to be changed. I think, to me, we are now on the bureaucracy wreck. Right. And when you go to the big tigers that we have admired, the Singapores and whatever, it is the tackling of bureaucracy which unlocked the economic potential of those countries. I want to be on record. The concept of northern Kenya or any of those places has nothing to do with the population per se. It is the repositioning of the economic potential of those areas that we as a Kenyan population have not yet challenged ourselves. We haven't seen what somebody in the Disney world saw. If you talk of the likes of Sun City in South Africa, these are cities built literally nowhere. We can still have those type of developments coming up out there. When you look at what we are calling the maritime sector, unlocking the whole of the coastal population has nothing to do with the road development. They have a natural port which God has given them, both in Iramu, both in Kridini. They have marine sites like Kisite. All those are goals which are sitting there. But as a country, we haven't agreed that we need to tap into what we have naturally been given out there.
For lack of information?
Yes, for not lack of information. You see,
because why would we agree
this animal we call bureaucracy uses information in doses. And that's what, you see, the concept of devolution is also an information release. You are releasing potential information to people for people to be able to build themselves correctly. There is no secret that you have as many poor fellows in Nairobi as you have in some of the least poor areas in the country. So I argue with some of my policy friends that when I look at the Kibiras, the Madhares, the Mukurukwajengas, all those areas are rural Kenya. It's only that we don't want to call them that. But you keep on baptizing them as slums and then coming with slum upgrade. But basically what you are not debating is what that picture is calling raw wages. That as long as I pay you 4,000 shillings per month, the ability for you to be in a stone house is zero.
Is that what motivated your new Kenya, your planning to?
Exactly. So that we don't have the slums and upgrading a slum. In fact, that term of upgrading slum has always been quite interesting to me, because at the end of the day, when you upgrade a slum, what do you have? It's no longer a slum. So what we should do is just get rid of the slums, and the only way you can get rid of the slums is to give opportunity to these people wherever they come from, so that they can develop. And
but we politicize that now. I don't even know how we'll come out of. I don't know how we'll undo that political argument, Mary.
I think his plan is quite ingenious. If you develop the place, not the people, develop...
You're still there?
I'm still there. If you develop the place and the governor in that area, together with the people and its assembly and the executive, determine that this is what is good for our area. This is our resource that we can develop. And this is how we're going to do it. And this is the money that we have to do it. And this is how we're going to generate income for this county. Then it means that you then grow as a county. And the people who were running away from the, this rural-urban migration story, you kill it. Because here in the slums, we are stuck. I mean, Kenya, we've got the third largest slum in the world, the largest on the continent. Why? Because everybody is coming to, to just, what is it called, congregate in the same place. You develop those places, not the people, and people will move to those places. It's just, it's a no-brainer.
So that it's on record, the increase in slum numbers is not because Nairobi is developed, no. It's because the consuming population is sitting here.
Precisely.
So
that's
the
what you
industries,
mean.
1 minute, you cannot transfer Unga Limited to Turkana.
Why can't
When
you?
they have, 1 minute, when they have to move the flour volume together back to the other population, because see, even with the map as we are talking about it, there are areas that densely populated as they are will indirectly remain
But
as
we're not
sorry, I don't agree because
let's be open to each other. Even in US, when you look at the map
forget
of US,
let's think
there are
about
areas
Kenya.
where you see one thing we're missing, and I want us to be clear on this.
Yes.
If I develop the film industry in the north, it's not that I'll take the population. It is that I'll create an opportunity for the population already there.
Thank you.
Yes.
That population already there, the job called creating films may not necessarily require another 100,000 worth of workers out there. So it may not necessarily give them additional population. That's the point you're making.
Let me put it this way. I think the politics of greed is what has taken us here, such that we people who have gone to school, have studied a bit of economics and all that, are justifying the bad things we've done to the populace of this country. Unga, we know very well that wheat is not grown in Nairobi. So why don't we have in Narok, the industries, the milling plants in Narok? Why do we have them in Nairobi? Because we have them in Nairobi, people are moving into Nairobi because of our wrong policies, which we have still done in the new constitution. That's what we are trying to actually even implement. And those are the things we are saying.
You see, the is already in place.
Let me change the tenor of the argument, of the discussion, before I come back to Unga and all that. First, I think the rhetoric that goes about the definition of government is one of the things that worries us at the Institute of Economic Affairs. People still talk of central government and county governments. There is no such thing in the Constitution. Because the use of the word central gives the impression that centrality and importance exists in a certain place called Nairobi and in certain houses and in certain parliaments. When the Constitution clearly says that we have national and county government and that they are equal. It says that very, very clearly. So yes, we have county and we have national. There's no such thing as, it's just the division of responsibilities and the place of the national government that gives the impression that the national government is supposed to take more. So if anybody in the national government sits out there thinking that we are superior to county governments, the Constitution will surprise them. That's one. Two, talking about industry, let's also remember that government is a very big machine. Efficient in some places, extremely inefficient in Kenya in many places. And that's part of the poverty problem in this country. We have to be honest. That's a fact. But government only controls 30% of the resources that are produced in a year. In a sense that for every 100 shillings that is produced every year in Kenya, by way of example, 30 shillings is what the government spends. The other 70 is in your pockets and all these other people. So when an industry called Unga Limited or some reason takes the opportunity to establish a plant in Nairobi, it may be vicariously because of a decision government made, but these are profit seekers. So don't take it as these guys are not being foolish. The reason they do it here is because if they are to go to Narok, the roads, it's more expensive for them. So they're here because they're chasing the market, and they're also here. They're here because they're chasing the market, but they're also here because this is what allows them to competitively price their products. Okay. So the idea that government can actually distribute industries across the country, it can actually give certain incentives. Some incentives such as export processing zones and special economic zones, most of which I think will not be successful, partly because there are certain things that industry looks for. It's not just space. And that's why I insist that if I was government, and this is proven, provide services to people, not places. It doesn't mean places are not important. The people who bear rights according to our constitution are individuals, not a space.
Yes, Mary.
Well, actually,
So Mary was looking distressed and then agreeing, and then distressed and then agreeing. So where are you now?
I'm in partial agreement, but I'm in great distress.
Right.
Because I still cannot understand this argument of, let's just take unga. We're saying wheat is not grown in Nairobi. We're saying that the reason why people are here is because of, of industries like unga, and so they have come to seek the jobs here. We're also saying that the reason why unga is not in Narok is because there are no roads. But now we're providing a system that will allow the guys in Narok County to say, we want unga here. Why? Because this is where the bulk of the wheat is.
They want the factory there.
They want the factory there.
So you want, in effect, you expect that that locality will actually agitate for the actual...
Just as an example, okay?
Yes.
But what I'm saying is now, if we go back to the issue of the roads, the unga is not in Narok because there are no roads. Now, these guys in Narok, they now know, okay, this is where the national trunk roads will be. The national government has determined this is the trunk road. We as the county know these are the standards that have been set by the government, by the national government for our county roads. I'm now going to build my road infrastructure to make sure the industry remains here, the wheat is beneficiated and converted into unga in my county. And I'll create jobs for my people, and people will stop moving from Narok to Nairobi and be here.
So that's it. But you've localized the full actualization of this
Yes.
concept. So how do we do that in terms of equitable distribution then?
Equitable distribution means that every place has the opportunity to develop its own resources and grow and become, let's say, apply to be a city, and you find
So
what it is that is good
for you. In effect, as much as we said, identify the gaps,
Yeah.
check out the linkages, but you're also saying, first of all, identify the opportunities.
Yes, identify the opportunity within your county. So when I say in Mandera we only have air or whatever, but we want to grow strawberries because we actually have huge tracts of land, and we can do that, whatever they call hydroponic farming, like they do in the kibbutz camps, whatever it is. We can do that, and that's what we've chosen to do. And now we need the road network to ensure our strawberries get to wherever it is. So we as the county people, government, need to determine what are we going to focus on. So this is the money, and this is the mandate from, this is the mandate of the national government. This is the money that's been allocated to us. How are we going to use it, but still link ourselves to the national government agenda?
I want 47 counties, not countries.
We want one country with 147 counties. And again, I think Mary has really put it very well about the good reason Kwame brought as to why unga is here. Bad roads in Narok, and yet that's where the raw material is. So if we were to have the national government develop the places, that's the road in Narok which has not been developed, then the people there will not need to migrate to Nairobi. So that's why the thinking was, let's actually have opportunity, open up these places. Because it's good to think about Northeastern Province being a place for making films and a Hollywood. But look at what we discovered: water and oil. We may actually just forget about thinking about a Hollywood, because the amount of money we can actually get from Hollywood compared to what we're going to get from water and oil, we can forget about Hollywood. Let's buy film from India.
So in closing this session,
but 1 minute.
Hang on, because we have to close this session, unfortunately, for time. If you just, in your closing discussion, if you just highlight for me your highest, greatest anticipation in terms of an expectation. You know that tomorrow my governor will be sworn in, and this is the one thing I'm going to charge at and expect and enjoy the most. Then give me the one thing which you have reservations about, the one thing which you want for us to continue having a discussion on when we reconvene. What would that be for you, for example?
For me?
Yeah, all of us will do this, don't worry.
Give me an integrated development plan that makes sense, that has goals, objectives, that can be measured, and that is linked to the national agenda. That is what I want my governor to do.
Any serious reservation you have now?
You better have the right people to do it, to
But now
implement.
they've been voted in. They're there.
No, no, no. The governor is there, but then he's not doing it alone. He's got to then choose the people down there.
So we need to
who
be
will
vigilant
about
the governor's people.
Exactly. So the executive, the assembly, all of those people need to be people who will be able to take the county to the next level.
Yes, Colin.
I think my greatest reservation is when you see governors and very ambitious people and some of the campaigns that they had. These are heavy metal chaps. They're not software chaps. They believe that a governor governs by constructing things, constructing the schools which they do not have power to construct, but they think they're in charge of education and constructing things. That will be an enormous waste of money. If you look at the portfolio of buildings that the government of Kenya has, we have far more buildings than are actually needed. So if they concentrate on providing services, and I'll stress to people, piping water, making sure that people have water, making sure that teachers at the early childhood education part are paid, collecting garbage, because cities die and are built on two things: the availability of water. That's why water places provide the most place. Nairobi's name is about water, Mombasa is about water, Kisumu is about water, and most of these other places. Provide water, collect garbage, and then don't worry. The investors who actually see your population will come. That's it.
Yes, Gary. And tell me how you'll protect us from governors running, I don't want to use the word rogue, but just sort of being so enthused that they imagine it's a blank page, it's a blank check, it's an open field, and they can now roll in their great ideas in being the governor. But we are then here agreeing that there's a certain template they have to fit into. How do we protect ourselves from this? Is it more education? Do we lock them up for another month, take them to class? Now that the country is in fear, that one of the reasons why we're in a bit of a bind now is that there was not enough civic education that went round before we actually went to the polls. How much then does that afflict the whole situation of here comes the governor?
There are two things which I think are core for the process to take off correctly. One is for the national government to internalize that they are also new. Because I think we are concentrating too much on talking to rather than talking with the governors. And the people talking to also don't know who they are talking. The Constitution reduced the ministries to 22. The first thing I want a governor to ask is, what jobs have you released as a national government so that more revenue can reach me at the county level? Because this development we are kind of agreeing, all of us, can only happen when we also start agreeing that funds have to be used correctly, because we don't have an exhaustive pot. So I want governors to interact at the national level in defending the wastage sitting at the national level. I want the governors to insist that procurement should not be the only item which is the appetite for retaining functions of their level at that.
Translation, high corruption.
Number two, and a very important one, the spirit of Article 129 demands that the president will do things for the benefit of the people of Kenya. Article 176 says the governors will give service to the people of Kenya. So let's not mix the debate of development.
Right.
The development in the Constitution is people driven, and that's a choice Kenyans made, that we want our development to be people focused.
Right.
So what am I saying? I'm saying, Rui, I want a governor to talk and find solutions for their people. I want them to internalize these are the real things that have created excess poverty in my area. My commitment to you, in the next 5 years, I will have brought your poverty levels because of the following things I will do. If any of those things are to do with I will lobby for new roads, I will lobby for this, if they are the reason for them to get out of poverty, let us debate that issue. And we can give just one example, which is Kisumu. If you go to the place where you eat fish near the lake, the price of the fish is not lower because the fish is not a good quality. The price is lower because the income levels of the people in the area are lower. That's why the price of that fish is always lower. When that fish reaches Nairobi, it doubles the price. So you find the seller in Nairobi is getting a higher profit. So what am I saying? I want my governor to move from talking, what we call get away from broadcasting, start tuning in. I want my governor to go to Schedule 4. Understand trade and development for the local level is his baby. So what is the trade you want me to do?
Last
I
word,
want
Karidi?
the governor to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Kwame, last word?
Well, I think yes, one thing we can't stress enough is transparency, because the bad habits of the national government will be replicated at the county government especially, and the national government especially. The departments that handle money have this view that they know it and they do not have to be sufficiently transparent. We must know how every shilling is spent because we have a complicated system of government. So transparency at the national government and transparency by governors will be useful because then citizens can actually meaningfully engage.
And how can a citizen be vigilant in that area?
Well, there's what the Public Finance Management Act has provided what is called the County Budget and Economic Forums, where citizens would go in and actually the governor would chair a forum that allows them to input into the budget and general public affairs at the county.
Attend.
Attend and get copies of all documents that are distributed there so that you actually engage on the basis of information.
The last word, Mary?
I think just drawing on that, your County Government Act also has got the methods in which, there is a specific section on citizen education, civic education. There's a mandate to educate the citizens of a particular county. There's forums, how it should be done through the media, the newspapers, websites, even for people in the diaspora to know what's happening within your county, national TV, radio, all of those. And it is an obligation of your county government to inform you and to involve you in the development of your county. It's not something that's going to be done out of the blue. They have to be involved at that level.
Your last word, Usama?
Well, thank you. I want to correct something here. Actually, fish is more expensive in Kisumu than in Nairobi. And I'm still looking for a reason why, and yet it's coming from Kisumu. That's actually a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
My last word is actually, we need a structure that everybody really understands, so that the governor, when he's actually even coming, when we are attending those, the citizen is attending, the fora, to be informed of what was budgeted for and how much money has been spent and all that, they know exactly what budget line, what item they should be looking for, so that we don't have this runaway, structure where somebody in a given county is talking something different. So that's why we're looking at structure, which is not just a clean slate, but something that people can actually go into a template, go into and say, this was education, this is what you budgeted for education, and I want to know how much you've used for education in my county. That was the basis of the structure that we had put on the wall.
Osano, thank you. Mary, thank you very much. And Kwame, and of course Karidi. What we've done for you this evening is tell you, you have a responsibility. You did the biggest thing. You said it is time for the new constitution to come in. It is time for us to enjoy that which we worked hard, got involved, went out there and said we want it. But now there's work that comes with it. You have responsibility as a citizen. Get involved, attend what you need to attend, listen and challenge. But then again, you've learned that the governor doesn't just have a blank check to run with. It's not just open season for whoever's coming in as your governor. There's work that they need to do, and they need also to adhere to certain rules. There's actually a template to be followed. But we can only know how to do this as Kenyans if we know our points of involvement, intervention, support, and the points where we say, this is what we want as a Kenyan, as a citizen that we went and voted in the new constitution for. Have a good evening.